Pro-inflammatory foods, just real quick. In my book, I go into much detail, all these different pathways, but animal proteins is just omega-6s, right? And we always told like, okay, omega-3s are anti-inflammatory, omega-6s are pro-inflammatory in general. Now, do you need a little bit of omega-6 in your diet? Absolutely. Do you need too much? No, you don't. Does the average person have way too much omega-6s? Yes. That's why they always kind of push at the health store. Even the drug companies were pushing omega-3s. But we have to understand is that omega-3 foods create what they call arachidonic acid, right? And this is a pro-inflammatory fatty acid, right? It creates leukotrienes, prostaglandins, and thromboxanes. These are the things that we're trying to block when we take a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory like an ibuprofen or a Celebrex or some kind of pain pill, right? We're trying to lower these inflammatory processes. Now we can do that naturally. My lecture on Thursday we'll talk about that. But when we look at this omega-3s here, omega-3s come from flaxseed, chia seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, many other ideas as well. But that's where we need to get it from. We need to be eating more of these omega-3s. And nicely, it not only has the protein and the fiber, but it also has the anti-inflammatory omega-3s. Now, it will convert to EPA and DHA. And I'm proud to say that in 2014 or 2013, 2014, I assisted in bringing a company to actually create the first plant-based EPA. They have a lot of plant-based DHA in the market for many years, but they weren't able to actually extract, and we were able to find a source. And now there's what they call plant omega-3s. Now, at the end of the day, if you're eating enough of this, you don't even need to eat the plant oils as well. But these are anti-inflammatory fatty acids. They produce protectins and resolvins. These are things that help lower your cholesterol, they help lower your inflammation, and this helps improve your brain health, your cognition, and your memory. Now, animal proteins are just high in omega-6s. Even if you get grass-fed, even if you get wild-caught, all these excuses, it's still an omega-6. Now, is it better? Is it a little bit lower than omega-6 from a wild-caught and a free range and an organic and all this stuff than a conventional? Yes, but it's still pro-inflammatory. So what does it matter, right? These things disrupt the microbiome. And one thing that we want to still look at, and this is controversial because in the data, it was showing that, linoleic acid. So you're talking about like, say, the oils now, right? It's like vegetable oils, fried. It's not good for us. Now, the data will show that there's little conversion of the oils actually into arachidonic acid. That's what the most recent clinical studies have shown. However, it still can be when there's too much. And again, the average American having in certain sectors of America, having lots of fried foods, lunch, breakfast, and dinner, and also just excess weight. It's a high fat calorie that most people don't need. Now, I still cook with a little bit of healthy oils, but I try to minimize the use. I don't try to pour it on everything. Oils are not a health food, even though people sometimes think it is. But the idea is that, having no oil in the diet also can be contributing to some other problems as well. So we want to have more omega-3s than omega-6s. And the way to do that is by eating a heavily plant-based diet. Now, phytonutrients and antioxidants. So what's a phytonutrient? Phyto meaning plant, nutrient. And antioxidants, which most people know, like vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E. But when you think of phytonutrients and antioxidants, think of things like lycopene, beta-carotene, vitamin C, and all the flavonoids, the folic acid for your immune system, and the indole-3 carbanols, and the I3Cs and DIMs and the sulforaphanes. And now we look at the allyl sulfides, the anthocyanins and resveratrols and the EGCGs and the curcumins. These only come from plants. None of these things come from an animal protein. So you can eat all of this you want. People tell you to eat, wild-caught, free-range, all this other stuff. You're not getting this. And then they're going to sell you a barrage of supplements again, right? You need to be eating these rainbow-colored foods, not just sticking to one or two or three, which we all have a tendency to do. You want to be eating a variety of foods that are phytonutrients. They're jam-packed with them. Animal protein has no phytonutrients because it's not a plant. So when people eat this, they have to take more supplements at the end of the day. They can't get it from their diet. Now, also, there's very little to no antioxidants. 99% of all animal production of food is factory farmed. Only 1% is not. Now, I have patients and I have practitioners who are very ketogenic oriented, and they'll say, well, hey, we only get grass-fed, we only get wild caught and all. And I say, well, very lucky for you to be very elitist to the average patient that might be walking in your door, because the average person can't afford an extra $2 or $3 per pound. An average person can't get their fish from a special fishery in Alaska or go to the special farm and pay $20 per pound for bacon, getting it, from a free range or some kind of, better source of a farm. Most people can't. They're going to go to the big box store and just buy some whatever bacon's on sale. So there's a little bit of like, I want to get to something that is low cost, right? So it's like, I'm not looking at access issues. Everybody has access to beans and rice and fruits and vegetables, and it doesn't even have to be organic all the time. So that's another layer of protection. But the idea is that, trying to get to this plant proteins are jam-packed with phytonutrients and antioxidants. So going back, if someone's telling you got to eat more of this, then they don't understand the basic concept of nutrition. Now, fiber is a simple thing. Fiber, plants have fiber, animal proteins don't. I mean, I can just drop the mic and leave right now. I mean, that's pretty much a good statement there. What does fiber do? Remember, it retains water. We have soluble and insoluble fiber. It provides the bulk to the stool to actually create the peristalsis, so that you have the evacuation of your bowels, lowers inflammation, blood sugar, cholesterol, and more importantly, fiber, which is only from plants, creates the energy called N-butyrate, which is the kind of CoQ10 of your gut that makes your microbiome work. Okay. And it improves the called beta glucuronidase. This is how you detoxify. So when I see someone come into my office, standard American diet or paleo or keto, and we measure these things, they're super low in their short chain fatty acids. They're having very, very low to little to no fiber, even if they think that they're eating a lot. Because they're like, hey, I'm eating grass-fed, wild caught, and I'm eating tons of vegetables, Dr. Pine, and I'm eating some beans and vegetables and some fruits. And guess what? They're not, because when you eat the animal protein, you get full very easily. That's why people have a piece of chicken or a piece of fish. Everything else was a side. But guess what? You can't get to that 35 to 40 or more grams of fiber a day if you're eating animal protein. They just can't do it unless they're just really eating lots of food, in which then they usually will have a weight problem as well. So we have to look at, the reality is that they're not getting enough fiber. Fiber will improve the bacterial growth of healthy probiotics. This is what diversifies the colors and the fiber. Phytonutrients and fiber is what diversifies, which makes your bacteria replicate and produce more. So it's not just here's more probiotics. And we can actually show this on testing now. We can show but if you make more rainbow colored foods and increase the fiber in your diet, your body will actually develop its abundance naturally. Okay. It also removes dangerous hormones and toxins from the body. So here's your liver, here's your gallbladder, here's the stomach, small intestine. Okay. So our gallbladder secretes bile, and bile binds to fats and also toxins, and then we have the evacuation. Now, the interesting thing is when we have low fiber in the diet, remember the average person is having 7 to 12 grams a day. That's what they have in America. And we're trying to get to 35 grams or more. But when they have this less fiber in the diet, what happens is it's called enterohepatic recirculation. Okay, is what happens is that the foods, the chemicals, the toxins, it doesn't get out. Right? It's stuck. That's where they're constipated. So the body reconcentrates all those chemicals and it goes right back through the body again. So for example, with cancer, women who have estrogen positive breast cancer, the lowest risk recurrence is women who have 2 to 3 bowel movements a day. If they have 1 bowel movement a day, their risk goes up. If they have every other day, it goes up. If they go every 2 days, it goes up. Why? Because the stool, the waste that actually has phytoestrogens, xenoestrogens, and the chemical estrogens from animal proteins and the environment and plastics, it is still staying in the body and it's recycling and reconcentrating. So it's hitting them over and over again. Now, another thing is that interesting thing to know is that fiber. So when you look at colon cancer, talking about colon cancer, remember, number 2 cancer in the United States, both men and women. Now, in certain parts of rural Africa, there was a great lecture that happened a year ago, and I'd like to talk about it just real quick. They were studying the patients in rural Africa. They're not eating processed foods, okay? So it's a place where even I have to eat something from a package, right? So they're really they don't have access, so they're just really, really, truly whole foods. And they're not 100% plant-based, believe it or not, right? But they're eating all unprocessed foods. And interesting thing is their fiber intake is greater than 60 to, it goes anywhere between 60 and 90 grams, which is almost impossible for us to even to complete in a study here. But the interesting thing is their rate of colon cancer is 1 to 100,000, less than 1 to 100,000. It's almost virtually non-existent. In fact, the lecturer was saying that they have a higher rate of getting eaten by a lion than getting colon cancer in those areas of Africa. And it's because they're eating this natural diet that is high in fiber, which has always been help taking out things, okay? In America, again, 7 to 12 grams, the number 2 cause of death in men and women with cancer is colon cancer. That chronic constipation leads to chronic inflammation, chronic diseases, and cancer. More importantly, even this little organ here, the gallbladder, we used to think that the gallbladder was just secreting bile. Bile's the bile salts that bind to fats, right? So people were eating a lot of animal protein, fatty diets. They would get stones. They'd have problems, so they remove it. There's 700,000 Americans every year that get their gallbladder removed today. 700, so almost 1 million people are getting their gallbladders out every year. Now we understand that this bile that we thought was only absorbing the fats does more than that. In fact, the bile actually recycles 4 times in our GI tract before it gets excreted. And what it does is it has a sterilization effect to the GI tract, which actually prevents overgrowth. So now that we have a large population, 30%, almost 700,000 people a year removing this, they have a higher risk of getting microbiome dysfunctions like SIBO and gut dysbiosis going forward. Not only just having a fat malabsorption, which affects their vitamin A, D, and E, and K, those are the fat-soluble vitamins, but also other things in terms of the growth potential of bad organisms. And finally, I want to finish with this endotoxins. Endotoxins are from animal proteins, and it triggers inflammatory responses. So if you cook it, well done. If you boil it and you treat it with a pH of stomach acid of 1 to 2, guess what? It still has endotoxins. Endotoxins eventually end up triggering these SIBO, bacterial dysbiosis, candida yeast parasites, increases leaky gut or intestinal permeability. This is what endotoxins do. Endotoxins just create a barrage and cascade of inflammatory triggers, then increasing your risk of obesity, diabetes, and chronic other issues. So again, anybody saying, well, this endotoxin still comes from organic, still comes from grass-fed, still comes from wild caught. You can't cook it out of it. So again, there's just a little bit of science that people are still like avoiding and saying, well, I'm eating grass-fed or I'm eating clean. Clean is not getting them all the way where they need to go.